Xbox and Bethesda have been desperately in need of some victories, some big W's to be honest. This generation has been very disappointing for them. We obviously had all of the announcements of all these games that were in development, and there really hasn't been much to show for it, at least on the blockbuster side of things. We've had some smaller games, some smaller wins, such as Hi-Fi Rush earlier this year, Pentiment last year, but when you look at the blockbuster releases, the games that get people to jump into something like Game Pass, there has not been much to show for it. Obviously, we had Halo Infinite at the end of 2021, but that has suffered a number of issues, and the live service has been a massive disappointment for Xbox, and really the future of Halo is in question right now. And then Redfall was supposed to be the game that kind of, people spent their time on until Starfield came out, but that was, again, a massive disappointment. Hell, the developers apparently didn't even want Redfall to release. They wanted this game to be canceled. That tells you all you need to know about this project. And obviously, Arcane is still working on that, trying to fix it up, but there's like 40 players left on Steam. It really is just a massive failure, a big misfire for Xbox and Arcane. But now all eyes are on Starfield. That's why going into this Xbox game showcase, I had a lot of concerns. We had that big reveal in the summer of 2022. We saw some gameplay, and it didn't look all that impressive. The open world, there was a lot of lag, the gunplay didn't look very crisp, and there was big question marks. But fortunately, this new reveal that we got during the Xbox game showcase blew me away in so many different ways. The graphics have been overhauled. There's so many different systems into this game. I just love all the customization options, all the potential to just go on your own journey. The modding is going to be crazy with this game. This really does look like Bethesda could be back. This looks like it could be a Game of the Year contender, and I'm honestly excited to jump in early September for this. But Todd Howard recently sat down with Ryan McCaffrey of IGN. They talked about Starfield. They also talked about the future of Bethesda and also Todd Howard. It's a very interesting conversation, and they also touch on the pressure that is on Starfield. And this is what actually we're going to start with. Todd Howard said the following to that question of, is there pressure on them after Redfall's massive disappointment? He said this.
Well, clearly, I'm aware of that, everything you said. And compared to our previous games, there's always a lot of attention on what we do. We're very fortunate. For us, we have put so much into this game, and it is, as you said, our first new IP in over 25 years. It's our first major release in about 8 years.
Yeah.
So for us, we have just put so much into it that we're just doing everything we can to make the best game that we can. Hope that everybody loves it. So we feel we're on the right track, and we're really fortunate, I think, with some of those things you said to get the attention.
Yeah.
And that we know there's a lot of people out there looking forward to it, and we just view our job as, hey, just do the best job we can do, put everything we can into the game.
And this is kind of the safe answer, but it's very obvious that Bethesda has confidence with this game, and from what we have seen, there's reasons to be confident about this. And it's quite clear that Microsoft has been more hands-on with this project, giving Bethesda game studios the necessary resources and the time to perfect this. I do wonder if this wasn't owned by Microsoft, if this game would have already released, and I think the answer is probably yes. But I definitely hope that this is a more polished experience day one. But it's a giant experience, and that's why a lot of people are concerned about, that polish, because Bethesda, that reputation, and a bad launch really could hurt the potential for Starfield. Just be another big miss for Microsoft, and another strike at their reputation within this games industry. Something that I don't think they can afford anymore. And actually, next, this is when Todd Howard talks about that delay decision and the time that they used to make the game a lot better.
Well, look, it's just such a big game. And as you do these things, you do your best as it comes to release dates and projections. But given the scale of it, if one thing is off that by a percentage, that can escalate quickly to more time. And we've really spent it most of this year playing the game a ton, over and over, and making sure that it's balanced, it's as fun as possible, honing systems and interface, obviously bug fixing and all of those things, performance, and really getting it where we're really sure and solid on what we're putting out there for everybody.
And actually, one thing that I did really pick up from this gameplay that looked a lot more consistent was the gunplay, and that is a huge thing that has been not great with Bethesda experiences. You look to Fallout 4 as a great example of that. I really hated the gunplay of Fallout 4. Lots of mods fortunately made stuff like that better, but this actually looked very good. That's why a lot of people were like, is that rumor of id Software assisting in the development of Starfield true? And Todd Howard touches on that a little bit later. It doesn't seem like that's actually the case, but it's clear that the extra time, it was necessary, and again, that is the benefit of being under Microsoft. One of those things that I talked about when they were acquired, and the hope that they would have extra time to work on these projects and make them the best that they can be. And next, though, one of the big question marks surrounding Starfield has been performance. What different options will be available? Will there be 60 FPS? And especially after Redfall, you know, there was originally that promise of a 60 FPS mode, and then, well, that's not actually happening. I felt like the rug was being pulled from under us. And with Starfield, we just want that clarity. And personally myself, I was always expecting 30 FPS, but Ryan McCaffrey does bring up Redfall specifically. And this is what Todd Howard responds with after that question.
Well, speaking of performance, Xbox gamers went through a little unpleasant surprise with the last big Bethesda exclusive not too long ago with Redfall.
I honestly think that's actually an understatement.
And you know, that maybe not performing on console on the Series X, kind of how we'd hoped. So I think really all we're looking for is not necessarily everything's got to be 4K 60 or 120 frames, but just kind of, nobody likes surprises.
It's 4K in the X, it's 1440 on the S. We do lock it at 30 because we want that fidelity, we want all that stuff. We don't want to sacrifice any of it. Fortunately, in this one, we've got it running great. It's often running way above that. Sometimes it's 60. But on the consoles, we do lock it because we prefer the consistency.
Yeah.
Right? You're not even thinking about it. And we don't ever want to sacrifice that experience that makes our games, really, really special. So feels great. We're really happy with how it feels, even in the heat of battle. And we need that headroom because, in our games, really anything can happen.
Now, the interesting thing with this revelation that Starfield will be locked at 30 FPS is that kind of Todd Howard gave us that indication a while ago. He really put an emphasis on fidelity. And we've seen a lot of reactions online over the last 24 hours about this decision. Some very unimpressed with this and saying that, again, Xbox is lacking a game that really takes the true power of the Xbox Series X to the max. And with Starfield, I think there was an expectation or a hope at the very least that we're going to have that option available, but that's not going to be the case. I personally find it very unfortunate, but not surprising. I don't even know if the creation engine, I know it's been upgraded and all this. I really do wonder if it could even, do 60 FPS consistently. I think that was another thing Todd Howard, a lot of people missed, that big, consistency. That's not something that is exactly very easy, and having something that is constantly stuttering and such. I had that happen with Star Wars Jedi Survivor a couple of weeks ago, where it was constantly going from 50 FPS to low 40s down to the 20s. You want something that is steady. So if Starfield is running a stable 30 FPS, God, I hope it does. I'll be fine with it. Obviously, I am disappointed, but that also is why a lot of gamers, especially with Bethesda experiences, probably will just pivot to playing this game on PC. And furthermore, on that point, we did have Xbox respond to this announcement by, again, defending that decision, saying that it was a creative choice. This was Phil Spencer sitting down in a recent interview, and he said the following once he was asked about it.
Today we confirmed it's 4K 30 on console. Do you guys feel like gamers got used to 60 frames per second, and that's going to be a hard bargain to make with them, or do you guys feel confident that they're going to get it when they're playing it?
I've been playing Starfield since November.
All right, you don't go brag about it.
No, it's not a brag. It's not a brag. It is a little bit brag. And the gameplay's great. And at some point, not to get all geeky about it, but there's render time per frame, and teams can either want to go horizontal or go kind of deep on a frame. And I think it's a creative choice. We obviously have games that are running at 4K 60 on the platform. It's not a platform issue. It's a creative decision.
Halo 120.
Yeah, and I think I trust what BGS, the decisions they make, and I trust what I'm playing. And
It is worth mentioning that, again, this conversation has been going online. There have been some criticizing Bethesda for this, and we actually saw, I think, another YouTuber talked about that, saying it was unacceptable, and a Sony Santa Monica developer jumped in saying that, look, doing 60 FPS isn't something that is easily achievable, and it takes a huge hit on graphic fidelity. And again, Todd Howard in other interviews, I think he had an interview earlier this year with Lex Friedman, and they talked about this. He said he really loves graphic fidelity. He values that, I guess, more over performance. So this decision, I don't think it's all that surprising, but I can completely understand why many are critical of it. And that's why I am going to be very curious to see how this game launches. I don't care for all these people saying that, yeah, Starfield runs great. That's fine. I've heard about that with so many other games. Redfall was an immersive sim until it wasn't. I mean, we can go down the line with all of the examples of developers saying something and then it ending up not being exactly true. So, but I do believe that this was a decision, a decision because they want fidelity. They want the visuals to look as good as possible. Now, will it be, a steady 30 FPS? That's the big question mark. Red Dead Redemption 2 a couple of years ago did that. It was a decision that I wasn't personally a fan of, but it was a very steady 30 FPS when it launched, and there wasn't really that many big issues at launch with that experience. So hopefully that is something that is the case with Starfield. Hopefully we just have that dumb ragdoll stuff that happens with every Bethesda game, the hilarious little glitches and bugs. Nothing game-breaking, which has been the case with certain titles like, Skyrim and Fallout 4 and really every Bethesda experience in the past. And moving along, we next have Todd Howard discussing id Software's involvement with Starfield and the rumors that they were assisting in the combat of this game, and he actually denies that, saying the following.
They did not help us with the combat. Well, first of all, I'd say, being in the company, knowing the folks at id Software for a long time, I'm like a huge Doom fan.
I mean, they know what they're doing. That's why I ask.
They're the absolute best. And so with Fallout 4, they did give us a few tips on how to handle combat.
Yeah.
But in Starfield, we redid the combat ourselves, and it's really feeling great. But id has helped us really more on the graphic. They've helped us on the graphics side.
Oh, nice.
So we get into motion blur. It's just how the game feels smooth. Some other things that they do in id Tech that we wanted to bring over into Creation Engine 2, and they helped us do that. And it's great.
And I thought this next part was very interesting because Todd Howard talks about, can he do another 8 years on a game? Starfield has been a lengthy project, brand new IP for them. The vision hasn't changed all that much, but Todd Howard's over 50 years old, and there's probably only a couple of projects to come afterwards until he retires. And Todd Howard talks about that a little bit here after Ryan McCaffrey asked the question.
So, neither one of us is getting younger. We've both been doing our respective things for a while.
Yeah.
So, are you okay with things taking 8 years again in the future? Or
Not my plan. I don't think you would ever plan for that. Sometimes that's how it ends up, so that that what you're putting on the screen is what you want. But you're right. I'm not getting younger. Sort of start,
Like how many games
do you have
left in you?
Yeah. How many games are ahead of me?
Yeah.
Versus behind me, and so that does start to enter your head.
I do think it is worth mentioning that Starfield, again, is a brand new IP, and I think the hope is that a game like The Elder Scrolls 6 or even Fallout 5, they're not going to need to take 8 years. And even Starfield 2, it probably won't need 8 years. And Bethesda is only growing, so hopefully their output only increases with time and that funding from Microsoft. But when you do look to the future, Todd Howard is 52 years old, and if The Elder Scrolls 6 comes out in, say, 2027, and then maybe Fallout 5 in 2031, 2030, but Todd will be in his 60s, so just thinking about him retiring from this industry, it's just something that it's hard to grasp a little bit. But moving along, next we have Todd Howard talking about the influences of Starfield. He obviously talks about the DNA of Fallout and the Elder Scrolls being here, but he actually makes a mention to a different game that I kind of thought was a little surprising. But you definitely see it within the gameplay that was shown the other day.
But believe it or not, it's the games that put you in a world, that transport you to a place. So I think it probably also, as a flow, probably has more of a feeling of like a Red Dead 2, right? Like I'm living the Western fantasy.
Yeah.
And so in this, you're living This science
and that's what I meant with that city specifically. You know, the space cowboy. Obviously, that's not something that we're going to see on all the planets, but you can see that influence with this specific planet and this little region that we're, I guess, venturing into in the gameplay.
Explorer fantasy, and sometimes that's being on a barren planet and nothing is going on.
Or an Old West town, like we saw that in the direct.
Right,
Old
or
West inspired.
and all of that. So for me, it's games that where I feel I am rooted in the reality of this universe of the game, and everything else kind of disappears.
And proceeding forward, now we dive into the future timeline of Bethesda. As Ryan McCaffrey brings up, you know, if there's a Starfield 2, when is that going to be? Because looking at the Elder Scrolls 6, maybe that launches around 2027. Assuming Fallout 5 comes afterwards, that's 2030. And Starfield 2, was that 2034? This is, again, just looking at how Bethesda releases usually take around 4 or so years to release. And obviously Starfield's kind of been a little bit different because it is a brand new IP. We haven't had a mainline entry since Fallout 4 in 2015. You guess you could count Fallout 76 to a degree, but anyway, Todd Howard does discuss the timeline, and it's very interesting some of the things he says.
Is it reasonable to suggest that if Starfield is as awesome and successful as we all hope it is, that as gamers, is it reasonable to think that a Starfield 2 is 10 plus years away? Because and the reason I bring this up, not to bring it back to, like, you know, how much time do we all have left, but you have always kept...
Is this going to get depressing?
No, I hope not.
Okay.
But you've always kept your team, clearly on purpose, as one team. Bethesda Game Studios, your team, you know, and you had been alternating between Elder Scrolls and then once you acquired it, Fallout, and you'd gone back and forth. And now you've had this 8-year Starfield thing in here. You've already committed to Elder Scrolls 6 as the next thing. You said it's in pre-production. And then last year when we talked, you said, yep, Fallout 5, I want to do that. That'll be next.
That was more of like a general, it will clearly be after Elder Scrolls 6 at some point.
I think that's very interesting right there on Fallout 5, because he never did say that Fallout 5 is coming directly after the Elder Scrolls 6. And as somebody who is a huge Fallout fan, just thinking about a new mainline entry not coming after the Elder Scrolls 6 and maybe Starfield 2 instead, does make me wonder, like, wow, the gap between Fallout 4 and Fallout 5 maybe even bigger compared to the Elder Scrolls 6 and the Elder Scrolls 5. It's just crazy thinking about that.
Okay,
That's like, let me clarify that one.
All right, go ahead.
At some point in the future.
But
Like Elder Scrolls 6 is the next one.
yeah, but if Starfield's awesome and you want to do another one, and the team wants to do another one, and the company wants another one, it sounds like it's probably going to be a while.
I don't have a great answer for you there. It's an astute observation.
I mean, I'm not trying to get you to unveil the roadmap. Like, I'm just because again, you've kept your team smaller. You have.
But you're right in that we have gotten bigger. We have 4 studios. We have the one in Rockville, we have Montreal, we have Austin, we have Dallas. So we have gotten bigger to handle all this. We work with a lot of partners on stuff. But that doesn't speed things up necessarily, right? You need a certain size. We're relatively small comparatively.
Right.
They're not the Ubisoft who has like 14,000 developers and they have like 20 studios working on a game. This is still a very small studio, but I guess the hope is with these teams, they've been growing. They have a couple of studios. They have Montreal, they have Dallas, they have Austin, and obviously the Maryland branch, but maybe there'll be more branches to come. And maybe they'll have some of these studios, leading development like Fallout 76 with Bethesda Austin, who led that development. Hopefully that will be the case with these future games to, speed up the process at least a little bit. Although Todd even here admits that he's not sure how much that would if they continue to keep hiring.
Do these things. And I think if we look at Skyrim, again, not the plan to have an Elder Scrolls 6 this far after Skyrim, but in today's day, people are playing these games for longer. So our ability, like we talked about, to support Starfield, whereas maybe in the old days you would put it out and then you'd go on to a sequel, now we can support that game for a much longer period of time, which is what our plan is. And then as we look to like an Elder Scrolls 6, that is one where like, I probably shouldn't say this, but if I do the math, I am not getting any younger. How long do people play in Elder Scrolls for? That may be the last one I do. I don't know.
The last Elder Scrolls.
The last Elder Scrolls.
Yeah.
Yeah, geez,
Yes,
Todd.
I don't know.
I mean, I do the math as a gamer, and it's like, am I even going to be playing Elder Scrolls 6 on the Series X, or am I going to be playing that on the next thing? Because it's crazy how long the games that you make they take a long time.
I wish they did. I mean, I want them to be faster, but that speed isn't the goal.
It is worth mentioning that within this interview, he talks about Starfield. One of the goals of Starfield was to make it that this is a game that people are enjoying and playing for the years to come. And this is something that he kind of hit on in previous interviews over the last couple of years with the Elder Scrolls 6. They want these games to, that people get invested into, that Skyrim's still played today because of the modding community. And that is going to be probably a big focus with the Elder Scrolls 6. But making all of that possible takes a long time. And, it's not like the Ubisoft formula of spitting out a new game every other year for a big franchise, which I do somewhat appreciate in regards to Bethesda. But, I mean, come on, when you look at Fallout, mainline entry being 15 years from the last one, maybe 15 years, and the Elder Scrolls 6 has already been, it's probably going to be about 14, 15 years, maybe even more. It's just, the gap's a little too long, at least in my opinion.
Is, hey, what's the product, what's the vision, how do we do this, and how do we continue to support the ones that we currently have?
Yeah.
Because we have millions of people playing Fallout 4, millions, 76, Skyrim. So it's about, hopefully have that with Starfield.
And to one of the last but also very intriguing questions about possible partnerships under Microsoft, Bethesda Game Studios, In Exile Entertainment, Obsidian, all of them have a history with Fallout. And Ryan McCaffrey asked the question, could we see them teaming up on a game or something in the future?
You had told me last year that you want to direct Fallout 5, like that you want that to be your game at some point down the road. But now with the Microsoft, Bethesda, Xbox Game Studios family getting a lot bigger, you did work with Obsidian years ago with New Vegas. Could any of the games that you and your team have created, any of these 3 franchises, would you would you want to work with any of them potentially on something in the future?
I mean, I can't say never to any of that. For us, it is, what's going to get us the best product?
Yeah.
How do we stay focused? I think there's a lot of times where you can get unfocused and try to do too many things at once, and then they don't end up necessarily the way you want. And so if I look at other franchises or I look at entertainment in general, I haven't noticed the time gap between things being a negative.
Right.
Right? They can be a negative when you think about it and you make a calendar. Yeah. Hey, when Starfield 2.
Look at Grand Theft Auto.
Exactly.
That hasn't suffered in this
or,
yeah.
The gaps between, I think Half-Life 3 will do fine. Right? So so even though in the moment, you're like, how do I bring that closer to reality today? Because I want to play it. Those gaps, these are still evergreen franchises that I think when they come, it's about just doing it right.
Obviously, Todd kind of avoids the subject of will Obsidian or In Exile or Arcane or somebody else work on a new Fallout or Elder Scrolls, but I think Todd's very firm on the stance that Bethesda Game Studios is going to make Fallout 5. They're going to make the Elder Scrolls 6. They're probably going to make Starfield 2. But I think when we talk about spin-offs like a Fallout New Vegas 2, which it's not going to be called that, but just a Fallout in a different location, Chicago, San Francisco, revisiting some of the past locations in previous games, maybe that does happen with an Obsidian Entertainment down the road. Obsidian has already said that they are in favor of doing it, but the question mark is, when can they? They're busy with the Outer Worlds 2 and obviously Avowed and a number of other titles. And then In Exile Entertainment just showed off their Bioshock-style Clockwork Revolution, which actually looks very impressive, but I think the hope is, and probably under Microsoft, they're going to want to leverage a little bit more of the Fallout and Elder Scrolls IPs. So hopefully, at the very least, we do get some spin-offs, and I think that's something that Todd Howard probably won't be, I think he'll be fine with that. And last but not least, Todd Howard does touch on, the complexity of making a game with so many different systems and having it all come together.
I mean, you could say in some respects, this is like 5 or 6 games in one, right? It's the spaceship game, it's a on-the-ground game, it's just a dialogue game, it's an outpost game, it's a crafting game. It does all of these things, and it always is tricky for us to get a good game flow where those things don't feel like they're separate games, that they can weave in and out of them in a way that is holistically creates something, greater than the sum of it.
And say what you will about Bethesda's history, but looking at Starfield, looking at that impressive showcase the other day, if they nail all of these systems, this is a game that people will be playing for years to come. It'll be the next Skyrim in many respects. And maybe even more importantly, this will be the game that Microsoft has been missing for a couple of generations since the Xbox 360 era. They will finally have that go-to game to say, this is why you get it on Game Pass, on PC, on console, and cloud. Starfield has blown me away. It does feel like a true Game of the Year contender. Bethesda has done a great job at showcasing all of the various gameplay systems within it, and it looks massive. Obviously, though, there is a difference between having an impressive gameplay reveal and an impressive game launch. So indeed, a lot can change between now and September, but Bethesda, their marketing at the very least has sold me on being able to immerse myself within this world as a space cowboy that is jumping planet to planet and doing all kinds of random activities, making an outpost, completing quests, and discovering the secrets of the universe. And that's why this interview did a great job of Todd Howard, explaining the complexity of putting Starfield together, the vision, the pressure that has been on them, and also going over the future, the timeline of Fallout 5, The Elder Scrolls 6, and Todd Howard's future within this industry. It was a very eye-opening interview, something that I definitely appreciate, and I want to know your thoughts down in the comment section below. But thank you for watching. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video, or if you found any informative value, and consider subscribing for more videos like this, and I'll see you later.